The end of World War I reshaped the entire face of Europe. Four empires would fall, and in their place would be a massive power vacuum that needed to be filled by someone. Numerous nations would declare independence, be invaded, invade another, or be overthrown over ideological differences. Hungary is one such example. While more modern onlookers would note Hungary as being under the communist boot post-World War II, there was an earlier attempt to have Hungary under the Red Banner. While it will last only 4 months, it is a topic that needs to be remembered. It is March the 21st of 1919, and the Hungarian Soviet Republic has been born. The dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary had existed since the 1860s, though Hungary would be under personal union with Austria dating back to 1526. The union between the two would end after the conclusion of World War I, though shortly before the end of the war, multiple nations would declare their independence from Hungary. October the 28th of 1918 would see the Czech National Council in Prague declare independence. A day later, the Kingdom of Croatia-Slovenia would issue a similar declaration in Zagreb, and so on. In Vienna, workers and former soldiers were plotting revolution, while in Hungary, demonstrations in Budapest developed into the Aster Revolution. Hungary itself would separate from the monarchy in an effort to stave off these independent movements, but they ultimately failed. The First Hungarian Republic, led by Milia Karolyi, was unable to make peace with her neighbors, who invaded after the unilateral disarmament of the Hungarian army. The founder of the Hungarian Communist Party, that being Bela Kun, had managed to secure an alliance with the Social Democrat Party, the predominant party within Hungary at the time. Kun would launch a coup against Karolyi's government on March the 21st of 1919, proclaiming that they had the support of the Russian Soviet Republic to secure Hungarian territorial integrity against the invaders. Now in control, Kun would send a message to Vladimir Lenin, chairman of the ruling government in Russia. He claimed that the proletariat had now been taking control of Hungary and asked for an alliance between the two nations. Not only did Lenin refuse an alliance, since Russia was involved in, well, this mess, I'm not looking forward to covering that, by the way, but that because the Social Democrats had a majority of seats within the Hungarian parliament, that the proletariat was not truly in control, and a swift culling of non-communists must be committed. Kun was swift to comply, and by the end of March, very few Social Democrats would be left within the government. However, the Kun government was still massively unpopular everywhere outside of Budapest, and the only thing that was keeping them from being ousted themselves was the promise of holding onto Hungarian territory. Thus, they would declare war against the newly formed Czechoslovakia, who control over the majority of northern Hungary. A Hungarian Red Army would be established under Matthias Rossky, made up largely of the party public supporters, but thousands would join the ranks as a wave of patriotism took over, and many Austro-Hungarian officers, as well as plenty of men from the demobilized Honved army, would soon join up. In late May, after the Entente demanded more territorial concessions from Hungary, Kun attempted to fulfill his promise to adhere to Hungary's historical borders. The 100,000-strong Hungarian Red Army would march north to fight against the invading Czechoslovakians. They managed to retake Hatvan on May the 9th, routing Czech forces around Miskoy on the 20th, recapturing Kosy and Przesov on the 26th, and successfully separating the Czechoslovak and Romanian armies. While these victories brought popularity to the government, that was quickly changed. On June the 16th, the northern territory that was retaken by the Hungarians declared their independence as the Slovak Soviet Republic. This declaration actually proved to be the catalyst for the Hungarian Soviet Republic, as after this declaration, the Hungarian army split heavily into two factions, those who were communists and those who were nationalist patriots, etc. The latter felt betrayed as they had been used to spread an ideology rather than reclaim Hungarian territory. Thus, the morale of the army plummeted and thousands would desert rather than continue fighting. The Social Democrats, who had been purged earlier, now attempted their own coup on the 24th, but they were met by brutal reprisals, with a special group dubbed the Lenin Boys executing hundreds in the Red Terror. The remnants of the now demoralized Red Army would be thrown against the Romanians, who were invading from the east. But despite outnumbering the Romanians by 4-1, the utter lack of morale resulted in rout after rout, until they were in full retreat back to Budapest. Kun and the majority of his cabinet would flee to Vienna as the Romanians advanced. And while a new government would be formed under Guia Paiedi, it wouldn't be enough. Romanian forces entered Budapest on August the 6th, and with them would be that of Hungarian Admiral Nicholas Horthy, who would become regent in March of 1920. For Kun himself, he would eventually flee to Russia, where he would act as an agent, and would actually be stripped of his post for being too extreme, with him being the main proponent of the mass executions of people within Crimea during 1921. He would ultimately be facing a firing squad during the Great Purge of the 1930s, his fate being unknown until the collapse of the Soviet Union. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It costs you nothing, and I wish you all the best.